Hey, once again, I am bringing you supreme bike building content. Frame building, that is. We're taking another trip over to Bender's shop, and we're going to get to mitering some tubes, putting the whole frame together on the jig, and we're going to see what the frame looks like. Pretty excited for this one. It's a really interesting episode. So let's just head over that way.
When I miter stuff, I start with, and it doesn't really matter, kind of everyone can do it their own way, but I just start with the seat tube and then do the front triangle, and then I move to the rear end. Sometimes I'll do the rear end first because it's the harder part, and so it's nice to get the hard stuff done first, but today we'll just do the front triangle first. Kind of what's nice, again, back to that bike program, is it spits out all of my numbers. So if we look at these sheets that I have here, it'll go through and it creates, and I mean, I can specify which angles I want, but it'll go through and it'll show all the angles for every cut and how long the lengths are between the cuts. So pretty simple. I use this milling machine here, but basically we use like a generic hole saw, that you would buy at any given hardware store, and just, the hole saw diameter is going to match whatever the tube diameter is that's going into the cut. So for this one, this is our first cut. This is a seat tube, and so we're using an 1.5 inch bottom bracket, and so the cutter is going to be the 1.5 inch one. And in this setup, the cutter is going to be perpendicular to the tube. So we have it set up, we have it centered on the center of the tube, and then we know exactly where our miter is going to start. So this is our first one, and this one's a little bit different because it does have the bend in the seat tube. So it's like a little bit of a unique setup, but it's kind of all the same. You want to center the cutter on the tube and then cut it at that angle. This angle is 90 degrees, so it's super simple. Yeah, I guess we'll just cut this one.
Yeah.
So I just basically mark like a little line. And then I just clean up the burrs. And then we're good to go. And then that goes in there. And then it just gets lined up. And there's the first tube.
When I first was shooting this video with Bender and planning out how I kind of wanted everything to come together, I wanted to shoot these time lapses and pop up all these photos, but it just wasn't working. So those photos are all going to be reserved for Instagram, which I'm very excited to show you all the little bits. It was really fun getting to shoot something like this. Normally I just shoot bikes and nature and whatever, but yeah, the whole process is just cutting and measuring and cutting and measuring and making sure angles are right and all that stuff. It's super cool, but it's very meticulous, so kind of skipped over a lot of it. That first cut was the same process as all the other cuts, just making sure they're right. And I thought it'd be fun to do a little bit more of some artistic style. So I'm going to throw up some music and some beauty shots of him working. I think that the whole process just has a special aesthetics to it. So enjoy.
All right, so we have wrapped up the front triangle miters. I'm just gonna assemble them, make sure everything looks groovy. Seat tube, and then top tube, and then our down tube. And nice and tight and ready to rock. What's left for the front triangle, and we'll do this all together, but it's our bottle bosses, cable guides, things like that. We'll do that later. But we're moving to the back end, and what's unique about the back end is it's not just 3 tubes in a line. We have 4 tubes that kind of go in a different direction, and they're perpendicular to the center line of the frame. So inherently there's more to balance of like getting things straight and aligned, and so it's just inherently more complicated. So yeah, we're going to start with the chain stays, and again, when I use my yoke, it does help. It makes it a little bit easier. You can, I've designed it so I just have simple tubing outside of the yoke with one bend, and so we're eliminating a bunch of factors. And so yeah, we're going to dive into that. It's a bit more complicated, but we're going to knock it out and then move on from there. Cool. So we have finished the rear end. We got our chain stays and seat stays all mitered, and everything is looking pretty dialed. We'll still just make maybe a couple tweaks to make sure the fitment for the welding is super, super tight. But I'd say overall, everything went together super smooth. We talked about a little bit off camera, but when we kind of, with the wishbone and the yoke, we just try to mimic the gap just to create like a really clean aesthetic, mimic the gap from the top to the bottom, and make sure that those like really look cohesive. And so we kind of just finagled that a little bit and just make sure that all fits and looks pretty dialed. And I think we got something cool going on. We're gonna locate all our bottle mounts, all our rack mounts, and that kind of stuff next. We're gonna locate all those, and then we'll go ahead and drill all the holes, get those prepped, and then we'll just braze in all that stuff first, and then deep clean all the tubes, and then start welding it. So next step, drilling holes for bottle bosses and racks. All right, so for bottle bosses and cable guides, I usually end up just mocking them up the locations on the computer in my like construction document, so it just makes it easy. I'm not having to like on the fly make a judgment call. So for this bike on the bottom, we're going to do a triple mount for a big cage for like an Nalgene or a small bag, and then 2 additional ones for the cable. So the cable guides will run on the basically below the bottle mount and then continue up. So just use this document and translate them to the tube. We got the first one at 89, and then from there 2.5 inches. And for the middle mount, we're going to go up 344. And then from the front end, 102. Just like that. And now we have our locations for our bottles as well as our cable guides. Cool. So where we are today, I did a little bit off camera. So all I really did was just drill the rest of our bottle boss holes. And then also went through and drilled all the vent holes for a bike. So with steel bikes, every weld joint has to have a vent hole so the air can circulate through the frame. Because if you trap air in there, condensation will build up and then you'll just rust through your frame. So every joint that you weld gets a hole. And so I went through and drilled all of those vent holes. What we're going to do now is we have simple little M5 bosses. I think they're M5, yeah. And we're just going to go through and braze them into the frame. So the cable guides that we use attach to a bottle boss, so it's just all the same. So we'll just go ahead and do that right now. And then after that, we'll get to drilling and brazing a little insert for the dropper post. So yeah, that's where we're at. So what we start with is some flux. So what flux does, it helps the braze like flow, and then it also just prevents like heat discoloring, and it keeps it kind of colder. So put a bunch of flux in, and then we'll flux up our boss as well, and then we'll get to the heat here in a second. But you just kind of put some braze in, cover these in in flux, and then cover these in flux, get it in there. And you want to make sure everything's clean. So it's all sanded and it's all prepped and ready. The metal is down to the shiny metal. So what we do first is heat it, and then we're basically looking for the white flux to kind of turn clear. So as soon as it turns clear, that's kind of when it's ready for the silver. Slowly heat it. And you can see it'll start to bubble. It'll turn really white and powdery. And then I just kind of get it going. You don't want to just sit on one spot. You kind of want to move it around. And it starts to get a little bit clear. You can see how it starts to turn clear. You don't want anything to get red hot, so you let it get clear, push that into it, and then that's kind of it. And then boom, one down. And like you can see it, then it starts to kind of turn kind of shiny. So right as it does that, I'll put this in there so it kind of gets warm too. And then I'll just hold it there, and then it'll suck itself in.
Yeah, you're looking at the area like direct.
And then I just look for I don't need to use a ton. I don't like a huge fillet, so I'll just have it like a little bit. So what we're doing now is we're going to create the dropper cable port. And so what I've done is I built around the salsa plaster rubber insert. And what I've done is created a little laser cut piece of stainless steel that fits this little thing perfectly. And then they get bent to the radius of the tube, cleaned up. And what I do is I braze them on to the tube, and then I'll put it in the milling machine, and then we'll mill out that slot. So that's what we're doing now is I got this one prepped, bent, and ready to go. So we're just going to braze that on, and then we'll mill the slot in a minute.
So, as of right now, my bike is finished. It is built. It is sitting upstairs, bagged up and ready to go. And I'm stoked about it. I think that this episode showed a lot of progress at one time. A little bit less talking, a lot more doing. Got all the miters done, framed together, looks supreme. I know how it looks. And so far, only one person has guessed what color it's going to be. So as of this moment, I leave at about 8 in the morning to head out towards the southern border in Arizona to go bikepacking. Very excited to take you guys with me. I will be posting daily on Instagram when we get back into signal, or back into service, I guess, after the trip. I'll be doing like daily little mini trail videos. And probably in the next month, I'll post the whole trip video. Very excited to show off the bike, how it rides, and just throwing into fire. Fun fact, the bike was not built at all when I walked into work this morning, and we took photos of it at like 6:30. And now I'm gonna go take it about 180 miles untested. So please follow along if you want to see that journey, or if you want to see the rest of this bike get built, subscribe. Got to give a massive thank you to Bender once again for putting this project together with me. It means a lot. This is a true forever bike for me. And thank you all for being here. I'll see you in the next video.